a little mushy there, Steve. You okay?
Yeah. Again, whoa.
Yeah, it kind of sometimes sinks.
Whoa.
You know what? Take your time. Find
Okay.
a way to make sure it's
Yeah, I think
safe.
it's sunk enough.
You ready to begin, sir?
Yes, Cantor.
Mizmor David, Adonai Roi, Lo Echsar, Binot Asher Yarbitzin Yalmem Rochot Yanachani, Nafshi Shoveri, Yanacheni Lamaglet Tzedek Lama'an Shemo, Gam Kirelech B'Gitzol Havet, Lo yirah ki ata imadi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yanachamoni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai. Ishanta v'shamen v'roshi kosiri v'ya Achto v'chased yerdifuni Kol yamer chayai V'shaveti b'veit Adonai Le'orech yamim. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. In these most difficult moments, during this most difficult time, we often search for strength and for comfort. If you wish, I invite you to join me as I recite these words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind, and today in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we remember Ruth Reingold. To her children, to you, Stuart and Faith, and also to Diane and Todd, and to her grandchildren, to Olivia, Adam and Jamie, Melanie and Jennifer, to her sister-in-law Joanne, to all the members of her family, and to so many dear, cherished friends that she knew along her life's path. To those who are able to gather with us in person, and those who join us via technology, our hearts join together as one, as we remember and also celebrate the life of your beloved Ruth. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, and from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Your beloved Ruth's journey of 94 years began in Brooklyn. She entered into this world in 1926 and was one of 3 children born to Harry and Bessie Bromberg, Eastern European immigrants who came to this country when they were both quite young. Ruth, along with her older brother Danny and her baby brother Stuart, both of blessed memory, grew up in Brooklyn during some of the most challenging years in our nation's history. Ruth and Danny were very close in age, about 18 months apart. And she and Stuart, while separated by 5 years, were extremely close. Ruth was, in a way, like a second mom to her brother Stuart. She attended school and she enjoyed a wonderful group of girlfriends, and she was especially close with her dearest friend, Lorraine. Lorraine was like a sister to Ruth, and they would remain close throughout their lives. Now, as I see the 7 members of the family who are here in person, I realize that you know the stories, and you know the facts, and you know that I did not have the privilege of knowing your mom and your grandmother. But the stories and the facts that you shared with me I found so moving and so important that I think they merit repeating at this time. You told me that your mom and her family, they were quite familiar with tough times. There were some times where they were poor. They had their challenges. They made their way through the years of the Depression. But the greatest tragedy for the family, for Ruth, occurred on one Christmas Eve when Bessie, Ruth's mother, walked to the corner store to purchase milk, and she was struck by a drunk driver and was killed. Ruth was maybe 18 or 19 years young when she lost her mother. Following the death of her mother, Ruth's father, Harry, thought it best if the family moved to Cleveland because Bessie had 2 sisters here. The families lived here, and this would provide for the children the opportunity to know their aunts and their uncles and their cousins. God forbid, should something happen to Harry, he knew that they would be with family. And truth be told, Ruth was not happy about this move. Her life had been in Brooklyn. Her friends were there. She had a job. But always the dutiful daughter and sister, she moved with her father and brothers to Cleveland, Ohio. And then, not long after this move, tragedy visited the Bromberg family again, as Ruth's younger brother, Stuart, died in a drowning accident. These tragic losses, the loss of her mother and then her brother, and the ways in which they died, these must have really molded and shaped the woman who would become a wife, a mother, and eventually a grandmother. These challenging events in her life would shape Ruth into the loyal, caring, and concerned, and sometimes even overly concerned, friend and family member that she was to so many. Now, living in Cleveland, Ruth decided to go one night, we think it was with a cousin of hers, to a dance, and it was on this evening that Ruth met William Reingold. Bill was 5 years her senior, and it seems that from the moment he met her and danced with her, he was completely smitten. He went home that evening, and that night he told his family, "I found the girl that I'm going to marry." Ruth did not exactly feel the same way. But obviously, Bill won her heart quickly, because the two were married just 6 months after that very first encounter, that very first dance. Ruth and Bill wed on June 4th, 1950, and they remained as husband and wife for 52 years until the time of your dad's passing. Stuart and Faith, from your description, it sounds to me like your parents created a very beautiful home. They created this home together, and it was a loving, warm home. And when each of you entered into the world, their symbolic Reingold family portrait grew all the more beautiful and complete. It also seems to me that your parents were hardworking people, but when it came time to play, they enjoyed wonderful times with the two of you, and these times made for some wonderful memories. There were the family vacations to the state parks in Pennsylvania, which always included a visit to the beach and perhaps an amusement park. There were the visits to the resorts in the Catskills, which your father really loved because they were all-inclusive and he could eat as much as he wanted. There were the family trips to New York City, to Philadelphia, and also to Miami to visit friends and relatives. Your dad's skills as a salesman caused him to win a trip to the Canary Islands, which your parents enjoyed immensely. And then to mark your father's 70th birthday, the two of you and your families, you made sure to send your dad and your mom on a trip of a lifetime to visit the land of Israel. Sadly, much too early in his life, your father suffered a massive stroke. It was a stroke that the doctors declared he should not have survived. But he did survive, and for the 10 years that followed this stroke, it was your mom who became his primary caregiver. And it wasn't always easy. There were difficult moments, and sometimes it was impossible for your mom to even leave your dad alone. But in your mom's typical style, you shared with me that she never complained about it. You also told me that there's no doubt in your minds that because of your mother's care and kindness, it's because of that your father lived longer than any doctor could have predicted. Your mom had her activities. She had her routine. Faith, I think it was when you were maybe in junior high school, she decided to re-enter into the workforce. And you both described there were a number of jobs, short-lived, many of them, but the one that your mom enjoyed the most is the one where she stayed the longest. And this was her job as a buyer for leaseway transportation. With your mom's organizational skills and her absolutely meticulous work ethic, she gained the highest respect by customers and coworkers alike. When she wasn't working or caring for her family, your mom loved playing mahjong and pinochle. She loved having lunch dates with her girlfriends. She stayed active with the Sisterhood of Congregation B'rith Emeth, and she was also a member of Na'amat, or Pioneer Women. She was gifted in crocheting and knitting. In Yiddish, we might say she had goldene hands, hands of gold. And with these goldene hands, she created beautiful hats and sweaters for her grandchildren to wear when they were little. And speaking of her grandchildren, Olivia, Adam, Melanie, and Jennifer, you know that you four were absolutely, without a doubt, the most precious of her treasures. If your grandmother was one who would have worn a crown, you would have been the gems in that crown. And there may have been times when she was caring for your grandfather during his illness. Maybe she wasn't able to spend quite as much time with you as she would have liked to, but when you were with her, the quality of time so much outweighed the quantity. She was wonderful, and she filled your lives with precious and beautiful memories. Now, due to the pandemic, I know that Olivia is not able to join us in person. But Olivia, with you growing up in Chicago, the only distance between you and Grandma were the miles. Only miles between you and Grandma Ruth. Never the love, and never the closeness and the warmth. And I know, Olivia, from stories that your dad shared with me, that you hold very strong and special memories of her. And Adam and Melanie and Jennifer, you three, I think some of you might be wearing purple today. And I know that that was your Grandma Ruth's favorite color. And it's memories like that, those little things. The memories that you have as the in-town grandchildren. Memories of going to her house, visiting with her, playing hide and go seek. And there were also the times when maybe her apartment needed a repair or two and she would come and stay at your home for short periods of time. These times were very special for the three of you because you got to enjoy firsthand all of Grandma Ruth's kindness and love. Jennifer, I know that you and Grandma Ruth also had a special little thing, a deep connection, and whether it was those times, Jennifer, when you would pick her up and take her for a manicure, or the times that you would be able to visit with her in these last years, I'm told that her face would light up from these outings and these visits. Faith and Stuart, be careful. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Whether it was your childhood days, your teen years, or living independently as adults, she would always remind you, be careful. Because your mom and your grandmother, she knew all too well that life is uncertain and that bad things do happen to good and kind people. Losing her mother in her teens and her brother when she was perhaps 23 years old, Grandma Ruth, your mom, she understood this. So be careful. And this woman, your mom, who was always praying that you would be careful, I asked you, what kind of mother was she? Stuart, the first words out of your mouth: caring, loving. She made us feel safe and secure. She was always there for us when we needed her. She helped with homework, was never intrusive, and she was steady and organized at home and kept a beautiful home. She was a wonderful cook. And I know that this past Rosh Hashanah, your beloved Diane took your mom's honey cake recipe and made it for Rosh Hashanah. And I know that I'm supposed to say publicly Diane's cake was better than your mom's. Or at least it was close. And Faith, when we spoke, you echoed everything your brother said, but also added that you as an adult, in your adult years, raising your three children and working, it dawned on you at some point how amazed you were thinking about everything your mom did. How she worked and took care of the home and cooked and cleaned and made the most beautiful holiday gatherings for the family. And through it all, you cannot recall her complaining about it. You described your mom, Faith, as a woman who was never a gossip, who was never petty. And as we spoke, you thought about it, and I hope I'm sharing this correctly, but you seem to think this came from her background of all she had to do in her earlier years. She really, as in her late teens, she really had to rise up and be more of an adult than a teenager. And so when things would come her way, she didn't complain. She just did it. She just did it. And both you and Stuart said she led by example. And this is perhaps the greatest gift she could possibly leave to the two of you and to your children. Todd, you and Diane knew a mother-in-law who was always a very welcoming person. Both you and Diane always felt her love. You knew she loved you. And for you, Todd, what a bonus that your mom of blessed memory, Irene, that she and Ruth grew to be very good friends. And when your father passed, Ruth would always include your mom. Every holiday gathering, every special occasion. And so both you, Todd, and Diane, you knew a mother-in-law who was sweet and wonderful, and a woman who would absolutely rush and hurry to do anything she could for her family and her friends. Our tradition has taught us that words which come from the heart go directly to the heart. So it's my sad privilege at this time to call on her daughter Faith, who has some words that she wishes to share with us from her heart.
I've never felt comfortable speaking publicly, but someone once told me if you speak from your heart, the rest will follow. Today we are all wearing purple under our coats to honor my mother. Purple was her favorite color. Most people associate the color purple with royalty. It is a bold color that draws attention to oneself. My mother was the complete opposite. She was soft-spoken. She led by example. When I was reflecting over my childhood the past few days, I have come to realize how much of her positive influence my mother had on me. She had an incredible work ethic that I strive to emulate every day. She was kind, meticulous on how she looked, not because she was vain, because she was like that in every aspect of her life. I never heard my mother gossip. When things were difficult, she always did the right thing. She instilled an internal guilt monitor in me, so I strived to do the right thing. When I was in high school and cut out of study hall one day and got called to the office, it haunted me for several years until I confessed to my mother. My mom always put her family first, from having a home-cooked meal every night to staying up late helping me with homework that I procrastinated doing. My mom and I shared many days of laughter. We would giggle over little things. My mother never gave up when life became difficult. While my mother was not born into royalty, she was royal to me. I love you, Mom. It will ever greatly that I had you in my life. Love you.
Thank you, Faith. Her grandson Adam has a few words to share with us as well.
Well, I think the only thing I wanted to say today is just, Grandma was, here in Cleveland, Grandma was our family. We have obviously extended family around the country, but it was the five of us and Grandma at most holidays and most major occasions. And I think this is, I guess what I'm really proud of the family is just everyone really rallied around the past decade to take care of her. I think we need to take care of each other. So we'll miss Grandma, but I think it's been very special having her and having you all. So.
I'd also like to call on her granddaughter, Jennifer.
I definitely wasn't planning on speaking today, but Grandma had a big enough impact on all of our lives that she deserves some words to thank her. I think knowing her today, she would have her little bonnet on to protect her hair from the snow. She would be telling all of us we weren't bundled enough, and she would probably have an extra scarf or hat for one of us. She was always so thoughtful of everyone else in the family, putting everyone before herself. even in the times where she needed more care, she wanted to make sure that everyone else, including the staff at the facility she lived at, were okay, and she didn't want to trouble anyone. And that's something I know I personally really admire. She was one of the toughest women I know, had such a tough life and still had such a wonderful spirit and never let that bog her down. I'll cherish all of the times we got to go to the mall and get our nails done, because she, more than anyone else, loved to have her nails, her hair, her outfit perfect, not for vanity, but because she just made an impression on everyone and always wanted to set her best foot forward. And her work ethic, her meticulous nature is something I see in many members of the family, and it's something I know will live on forever. And I'm really grateful that, even though she was the only grandparent I really had the pleasure of knowing for the majority of my life, she had enough love for all the other three grandparents.
And also, let me ask Melanie to come forward.
As we've already heard how special Grandma was to all of us, I think her legacy really lives on. Just how sweet and kind she was to everyone that she touched, to the day that she's no longer with us. I mean, all the staff absolutely loved Grandma, and I think that speaks volumes. Being a nurse and taking care of people, I see it day in and day out how special how much impact you can have on someone's life, and Grandma had that impact on all of us, just through her kind actions, her love, her work ethic that Jen already said is passed on to us. And I think with death, legacy is really important, and Grandma's legacy will for sure live on within all of us. She was a very special woman, and we all love her dearly.
Thank you all. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, creator of the universe, the righteous judge. Adonai natan v'Adonai lekach, v'hi shem Adonai nevarach. God has given, and now God has taken away. Still we bless the name of God. Vayeshov ha'afar al ha'aretz k'shehaya v'haroch, tashuv el ha'elohim asher natana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns unto God who gave it. May the soul of Ruth Reingold be bound up in the bond of life eternal. As you're able, I invite you now to please rise for the memorial prayer, El Mole Rachamim. El Mole Rachamim, Shochim Bamromim. המשימנו חנכונה תחת כנפך השמירה, במעלות קדושים וטובים כזוהר הרקיע המסגירים. את נשמת רחל שהלך אל עמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. ענה בהרחמים אסתירך ובסתר כנפך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום. Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Ruth Reingold, who has gone now to her eternal home. God of mercy, we beseech you to remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is her portion. May she rest in peace. And to this we say, Amen. We turn now to the words of our Kaddish as we say together. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yalma, Dibra, Yirutei, Yamli, Malchutei. בחייכם וביומכם ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי בקודשה ובריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דע אמירם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום בברכה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו amen. We pray that God, who makes peace in a high place, will send peace and comfort to you, the mourners, and to Israel, and to all humankind. And to this we say, amen. We know that when we come into this world, there are loving hands to guide us, to hold us, to care for us. And we're also taught by our tradition that when we exit from this world, it's not done in the hands of strangers. At this time, I invite anyone who wishes to place earth on the casket to please do so as we say our loving goodbyes to a very beautiful soul. Zichrona livracha. May her memory always be for a blessing.
Amen.